welcome to Green Devils, Ireland's newest Manchester United fan channel, and this is the Green Devils podcast. And as you may have seen from the thumbnail, we are celebrating 1 year of the channel. So I thought we'd go all out and get a special guest to discuss Manchester United with me. So who better than the man you can see on the screen next to me? He needs no introduction, but he's going to get one. He is one quarter of the longest running Man United fan channel on YouTube, Stretford Paddock, as many of you may know. He is one half of the United community's answer to Anton Deck. He is an Alcohol Change UK ambassador. He's a regular contributor on BBC television and radio. And according to his IMDb page, is credited with making 4 appearances on the long-running TV series Sky News. He is quite literally the hardest working man on YouTube. It is, of course, the legend that is Mr. J. Motty. How are you, sir?
Brian, what an introduction! Honestly, fantastic. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to get that printed out and use that on a graphic next time I'm on Stretford Paddock. Look, I appreciate you asking me on. And listen, I was keen to come on here and chat to you anyway because you've been a huge supporter of us at Stretford Paddock, and it's not going to notice. I was chatting to Joe about you earlier. We appreciate your support. You're always bigging us up. You're always involved in the chat and the comments. And since we started Stretford Paddock from Full-Time Devils, you've been someone who's really backed us, and I do appreciate it. I'm glad to see your channel's doing well. 1 year in, it's not easy keeping the channel going, especially when you're doing it all on your own. But you're absolutely smashing it, and it's well deserved to see you get to a year, and undoubtedly many more years to come. And it's great to be on your channel.
Yeah, hopefully. Thanks very much. And yeah, as I said, thanks a million for taking time out of your busy schedule. I suppose we won't dwell too much on the seasons that's just gone. We'll briefly touch on it. I think, if going back to the start of the season, I think given how the end of the previous season went, winning the FA Cup, the signings that we brought in, Mazraoui, Delict, who else did we get in?
Yoro, Ugarte eventually.
Yeah, given the signings that we made, I think everyone was feeling pretty positive coming into that season, but it quickly derailed. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, after the season we had, the sort of the season where we won the FA Cup, I think that FA Cup win gave us all a little bit of hope and positivity because it's hard not. You're a fan, you're emotional. You've just beaten Manchester City in an FA Cup final. And it kind of made us all think, made me, I can only speak for myself, but no, I can speak for others as well. I think I spoke to enough United fans around that time to think, you know what, maybe things aren't that bad. Yes, we've just finished 8th. Yes, we've had a very poor season. We've had a lot of defeats that we shouldn't have had, especially at Old Trafford, but we have just beaten Manchester City in an FA Cup final. En route to that, we beat Liverpool, and ruined Klopp's farewell tour. We have got some very good young players coming through, like Kobbie Mainoo, for example, and obviously Garnacho. Maybe things aren't that bad. And then you go into the transfer window and you buy, a whole host of new players. You get someone like Matthijs de Ligt, who, was one of the most spoken about defenders in the world not so long ago. Lenny Yoro, you get him sort of, under the gaze of Real Madrid, or, sneak him under the eyes of Real Madrid. You think, okay, that's a bit of a coup. Plus you throw in someone like Xerxes, who's an exciting player, and eventually obviously adding Ugarte. You can understand why fans were excited, why we had expectations. And it was just so disappointing to see us not really get going under Erik ten Hag this season. It was, the Fulham game, even though we won that very first game at Old Trafford, I was there, and it wasn't a very good performance. It was, we got a win, which we'll take. Yeah. But you thought, okay, maybe it's because we've got some new players, and, Xerxes had come in, I know he came off the bench, and Mazraoui had started. You think, okay, it's going to take a little time. But we just never got going. And that was a theme throughout the entire season. And there was 1 or 2 high spots. Obviously, the game against Lyon was unreal. And the win at the Etihad, the win at the Emirates in the FA Cup. But it was just an awful, awful season. And there's no sugarcoating it. And the sort of, whatever the opposite of the icing on the cake was, maybe the final insult, was that Europa League final loss to Spurs. Yeah. We out-Spursed Spurs. And that just summed up the season. There was just genuinely, I think for the first time, arguably ever as a United fan, I can say there was no positives from last season. I don't think there was any real. Yes, we had some good players that came in and did well, but even those suffered injuries as well. So it was just a woeful season that I'm glad is behind us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think you touched on it there as well. I mean, that first game of the season. Obviously, Highland's first season was okay, and then obviously he gets injured in pre-season, and he's missing for it was the first 3 months of the season, I think, wasn't it? He was gone for a good chunk of at the start of that season. So
Yeah,
I think as you said, the Fulham game, and obviously some others, we the story of our season was just not putting the ball in the back of the net. There were obviously there was moments where we were coming off the pitch with 20 chances created and probably one on target. I think that's probably the one, the biggest take from the season was just not being able to score. And like you said, there was games we just didn't play well at all, and we were rightly punished for it. It's just, yeah. And I think when Eric Ten Hag did finally go, obviously in hindsight, it was he probably shouldn't have started the season.
yeah,
But as you said, you're coming off that win in the FA Cup. You know, I think the majority of the fan base were calling for him to stay, but then obviously Amram comes in, showed what he was doing at Sporting at the time, and I think everyone got that lift again. But for I suppose the main reason I suppose it didn't happen was he's changed in that formation, and then got ridiculed for it. I know most people, I think yourselves included, were kind of saying, he needs to be given time to implement his system. You know, Ultimately he got Eric Ten Hag's players that weren't good enough for Ten Hag's system, and he was trying to get him to play his system. And it just, as you said, it just dragged on throughout the whole season. Throughout the pitch, no one was really good enough. Bruno and Ahmad were probably the only shining stars in this team throughout the whole season, really.
yeah. I think that's fair. I mean, throughout the season, we saw some good performances by some players, and I think there's a lot of reasons to believe that some of these players can go on and have very successful Manchester United careers. You look at Lenny Oro, look at Aidan Heaven. I know he's only played briefly, but he looks like a player. There's one or two others as well. I still think Kobe Mainu will have a great time at United as long as he's Ruben Amorim sticks with him. But I think if he does, I think there's definitely a player there. And I'm a big fan of Matthijs de Ligt. It's just injuries as well. Look at someone like Lisandro Martinez, for example. It took him a little while to get going, and then he did get going. Then we saw the Martinez of old, and he even started scoring goals, and then he's out for the season. And then Aidan Heaven all of a sudden gets his chance because he's brought in as a backup to Martinez. He plays really well, having a great game at the King Power against Leicester. Then he gets injured. And that was just a running theme. You mentioned Ahmad. Ahmad was flying. Then he gets injured and he's out
Yeah,
for a few months. It was just almost ridiculous. It really was. And every time you had a player that looked like they were showing us something, they'd get injured. It was like when Joshua Zirkzee went on probably his best run with the ball in a United shirt at St James's, I think it was, and he pulls his hamstring. And you're
yeah,
like, we just can't get any sort of consistency in terms of regular players playing regularly, let alone performing at the levels he should do. And the only one that did tick all the boxes for me in terms of playing every week and playing well almost every week was Bruno Fernandes. Even in a team that was struggling, he was still, I think it was a goal involvement every other game. Obviously, you know, covering a multitude of roles and being fit every week. I know some people criticise his performance in the Europa final, and I get that he should have done better. But overall, I think Bruno had a good season, a consistent season, and the others, even when the ones that did well, they missed a lot of the season for injury, and that was just it was. People don't like to use the term luck in football; they hate it. But we were unlucky with injuries. I don't think there's something sinister. I don't think it's the physios or the medical department or the training. I think sometimes it is just there might be an element of that, but a lot of it is just bad luck. I mean, Aidan Heaven against Leicester, that wasn't anything to do with the medical department why that injury happened to him, and he
yeah,
just started showing us actually this is a player that maybe we can rely on, and then he gets injured. What in the second half of his full Premier League debut? It was just shocking bad luck.
yeah. And just on you're touching on Bruno there, I mean, it's crazy to think that one bad game he had in the Europa League final almost caused a lot of people in the fan base to be saying, when the whole rumors of Saudi coming in for him, there was a lot of people in the fan base had decided, yeah, he needs to go now, and it's crazy. I mean, he's carried the team for the best part of 5 years, really. He's been our best and most consistent player for that entire time. So I was
I,
delighted, obviously, to hear the news that he's decided to stay. Uh, how do you feel about that?
I'm with you,
Yeah,
100%. And I never ever bought into the idea that we'd be better off in the long term selling Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes is probably the only player we've got you can hand on your heart say is, for me, world class. You can argue that you're always on his day, that De Ligt is, that even Ahmad can be, or Mainu, but consistently in terms of week in, week out, Bruno just makes the team tick. And it's not even about making the team tick. He plays every week. He can get you a goal and assist. He can put a challenge in. He is a leader. People say he's not a leader, he's not a true captain. It's nonsense. He is. And off the pitch, his attitude and the work he does is second to none. You need players like that at Manchester United. If you lose Bruno, there aren't many of them. It makes me laugh when people question his captaincy. People say he shouldn't be captain. That's fine, okay, you don't believe that. Who should be captain then? And then people struggle because Casemiro, does he even start if everyone's fit anymore?
yeah,
Probably not. I know he started a lot of games towards the end of the season, but there's a chance he might not even be here next season. De Ligt, he's missed half of his time at United with injury. Martinez is currently injured, and we don't know when he's going to be back. There's not many options there. Maguire, you could argue, but you took the captaincy off him.
yeah,
Again, if everyone's fit, is he part of that back three? I don't even know if he is. It's probably De Ligt, Lenny Yoro, and Martinez if everyone's fit. So every option you've got is flawed. Bruno Fernandes is the obvious candidate to be captain. I think he's a fantastic footballer. And I think the way forward for United is to keep older players like Bruno, sell the players that don't want to be in, that we don't need, and there's plenty of them,
yeah,
and then bring in players that do want to play and put some decent players around him because we don't have enough quality around Bruno Fernandes. If you look at the amount of chances he creates, I think he's top of the chances created tables again in the Premier League or thereabouts. And yet, other than him, our next top scorer in the Premier League's got like 7 goals or 6 goals, whatever it is. It's just not enough.
yeah. And just on, I suppose, moving on then, kind of to what you're saying there, getting players in, better players in around him. Obviously, we was the 1st of June, first day of the transfer window. We obviously got confirmation that Matthias Cunha is signing from Wolves, £62.5 million, and and then obviously the next day we got the confirmation that Brian Mbumo has chosen United. I mean, just those two alone, I think, completely transforms our attacking options. Even if we don't sign that top level striker to complement them, I think Xerxes is an option with them as well. And I know Stephen Howson, I think, even said it on his channel there recently, that an option of doing, instead of doing that 3-4-2-1, maybe change it to a 3-4-1-2 and have Cunha and Mbumo up front and Xerxes in behind the two of them. There's so many options with just those
Yeah.
two. And then obviously you have Ahmad still coming in, and there's potentially a lot more signings still to come, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm excited about that. I just want to see Mbomo sign on the dotted line. I want to get that deal done because I've already got carried away with it. And in my head, he's a United player. So I don't want any twists in that sale. But very exciting player. Whenever I've watched him, he's impressed me. And his numbers speak for themselves. 20 Premier League goals. You can't ignore that. We've not had
Yeah.
that at United since Robin Van Persie. So I know he didn't do it at United and
Yeah.
Bomo, but it shows you how difficult that is to achieve. And Cunha, I mean, look, people say, oh, everyone does well against United. To a certain degree, there might be some truth in that, but not everyone does as well as Cunha does against United. He absolutely tears us apart every time he's played against us. And again, just look at the numbers point of view. He puts numbers on the board in terms of goals and assists. And whenever I've sort of caught Wolves when they're on the telly, like Wolves versus Liverpool or City or whatever, he's the threat. He's the player that can go up against the best defenses and the best players in the league and cause them problems. And he's got a bit of an edge to him. So I'm massively excited about those two signings. We need drastic action. We don't need tweaking. We need at least 3 or 4 players coming in, and those two is a massive step in the right direction. Keeping Bruno Fernandes is a massive step in the right direction. We just need to bring in some others as well because we need options, and especially as we've just been speaking about injuries, we want to have options so that if 1 or 2 players get injuries, we're not stuck because that's what's done us the last season.
Yeah, I think. Do you see us going and getting that top level striker, or do you think we're kind of? Do you think the club kind of done in that attacking area and kind of will now focus on maybe midfield, new goalkeeper?
It's a good question that because I was chatting to we had Mark Critchley from the Athletic on the channel the other day, and
Yeah,
one thing I spoke to him about was what worried me slightly or confused me slightly was this fact that we've been linked quite heavily with Liam Delap. Everyone who's worth this, anything who covers Manchester United was saying that we were in talks with Liam Delap. We were ready to pay that 30 million buyout clause, which isn't a lot for a striker, if we're being honest, not at the top level. It was happening, or we were trying to make it happen, but there wasn't much noise around anyone else. There wasn't much noise around Gyökeres, for example, other than
yeah,
it makes sense that United would want him if we can get him. Osimhen is another player that would make sense. Maybe someone like Jonathan David because he's on a free. But there wasn't many links in terms of United have open talks or United are making a bid or anything like that. That worried me a little bit because I was like, surely we've got to have a plan B if we can't get Liam Delap, who now, as we all know, he's got at Chelsea. So that confused me because you would think after this season we've just had that the scouting department, whether that's Christopher Vell, whether that's Jason Wilcox, whether it's Omar Barada, whoever that may be, whether it's the manager himself, have sat down and gone, look, who's on our list of strikers? We need a striker. I'd be amazed if United weren't in the hunt for another striker because yes, you could play Xerxes there. Yes, you could play Cheeto there. Yes, you could persist with Rasmus Højlund, but all those are flawed for different reasons. I think
yeah,
Cheeto's long term going to be a great player, but he's only 17. Xerxes, is he even a striker? I don't think he is. And Rasmus Højlund, I'm not buying that. I don't think you can start next season with Rasmus Højlund.
no,
I hope he turns it around, but I'm not confident he will do. So for me, a striker, it's got to happen. It has. We have to have other options. I saw one recently linking us with Alexander Mitrovic. Not the best candidate, but
no,
maybe that is someone short term that could come in. Maybe that's a backup if you bring in someone else as well. We just need to start looking at other options because clubs won't mess around. It's not just United who are going to act quickly in this transfer window. And strikers, goal scoring strikers, are in short supply. Now, it might only be the 4th of June, and we've got a week break out in the transfer window, I think,
yeah,
next week. But clubs are going to start looking and it's going to start making moves. And if United don't act quickly, we might end up being left behind. And we can't go into next season short up front because it's cost us the last season and if not the season before as well.
yeah. I think, like you said, Gyökeres is the obvious option. Obviously, with the links to Amarim and how we played in that system at Sporting. Um, Osherman obviously is another decent option, but it's well documented now. His wage demands would be likely too high. He would be a Woodward signing if he was still here. Osherman, it wouldn't matter about the wages. Um, yeah, and like you said, outside of that, Mitrovic, was he 31?
Yeah, I think he's. I think he might be 30. To be honest with you.
Okay,
So look, he's not top of my list by any stretch of the
no,
imagination, and I don't think that he's going to be the answer to our problems. But I think as a backup option or an option for someone with Premier League experience who maybe can come in and just sort of be a stopgap until you bring in a better one, then I'm not completely against that idea. Rather than just bringing in no one, I
yeah,
think that would be the worst case scenario: is not to sign anyone.
yeah. I think another name that was mentioned, all right, was John Philippe Mateta, Crystal Palace, who would be a decent option for us. I think. He's still young enough. Is he 24?
Yeah, I think he's. I thought he was 26, but let's have a
Okay,
look. I don't want. No, you might be right. I'm not
I
a.
yeah,
He's 27. We're both
or
wrong.
27. Okay,
Yeah.
I suppose
So
he'd be in his prime. I suppose, or approaching that prime time of his career. So, and he's prem proven that phrase that everyone seems to use. It needs to be prem proven, but I think there's risk with every player that United are going to be linked with because we need to get these transfers this summer absolutely spot on right across the board because the rebuild that we have is so huge. Every signing needs to be spot on, And I can understand the argument of, yeah, they need to be prem proven, need to hit the ground running, which Mateta and obviously Cunha and Bumo will do. But I'm not sure if I completely buy into that argument of that's why we shouldn't go get Gyökeres because he's not prem proven. But like I know he scored is a 40 something goals this season in Portugal. Yes, Portugal isn't a top league, but even if he scored half of that in the Premier League, it's three times what Ireland has scored. It's so I think if a player is good enough and Amarim and the entire board say, yeah, he absolutely fits our system to a T. I can see exactly how he fits in, what he can bring to the team for us. We just need to be going and getting him. I don't think, obviously, wages will play a part in it and the fee, but I'd have confidence that Ineos would be able to get the right deals done, given what they've done, say in January, even with getting Aiden Heaven and Dorgo, and then obviously last summer.
Yeah, this is where Ineos have got to step up. They've had 2 transfer windows so far, and I think they've got some things right, and I think there's been some missteps. And when I say missteps, you look at your guy. I think the jury's out. Now, I'm not giving up on your guy, and there's been some good performances, but Ineos made the decision. We don't want Amrabat. We don't want McTominay. We want your guy. I know your guy is a different type of player from Scott McTominay. And I'm not even saying that McTominay should have stayed or whatever, but it was a big call. And right now, it's one that we don't know whether it's the right one. You look at Xerxes, good player, good on the ball. Does he get you enough goals and assists? I'm not so sure. Again, the jury's out. I think it's too early to say no. You look at De Ligt and Yoro, makes sense. They both had injuries, not their fault, but I think Yoro's definitely one for the future. De Ligt's a good player. I just hope injuries don't play a sort of part in sort of damaging the rest of his career.
Yeah.
I think the one that's been an unmitigated success for me so far is Mazraoui.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's the best player we've signed, but he's played almost every game he's been available, I think. I think he's 50-odd games for United, and he's played very well in nearly all of them. So he's not had injury issues. He's played all the games, and he's played well. That is what you need from any signing. I know you can't always have it like that. So I think Ineos have to and then the January window, Dorgu and Heaven. Heaven definitely one for the future and can do a job now. Very good. I love Aiden Heaven. Patrick Dorgu for me looks like a very good footballer. Again, you might argue we can wait and see what happens with Dorgu. I'm erring towards the opinion he'll be a very good player for Manchester United, but it's still early doors.
Yeah.
This summer though is the big one they've got to get right because we've just finished 15th. All eyes are on Ineos now. It's not about blaming the former regime, although you can still blame them. They're not blameless, but it's more about what Ineos are going to do. It's their manager, it's their transfers, it's all about them. This isn't Ten Hag, this isn't anyone else, this isn't Richard Arnold or John Mercer or Ed Woodward. This is all on you. So they have to get it right. And this is what worried me about selling Bruno Fernandes, because I think Bruno Fernandes, selling him and replacing him would have been a massive task for Ineos. Now they've got an easier task because there's lots of players we can get rid of. We can get rid of Marcus Rashford. You can get rid of Alejandro Garnacho. You can get rid of Anthony and Malacia, I think, if he's not gone already.
Yeah.
There's players there that can go. We're getting players off the wage bill, Christian Eriksen, Johnny Evans, one or two others. So there's money to be made there. Garnacho could give you 50, 60 million even. That's a big amount of money that you can spend. So it's an easier task to replace those players than it is Bruno Fernandes, but they've still got to get it right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and just on, I'm not sure if you've seen it on social media. I'm sure you have on social media over the last couple of days when Mbumo was announced, and it's seen the reaction from rival fans to United signing a 62.5 million player and likely another similar fee for Mbumo. I think is it 55 million maybe. And seeing the reaction online from the fans, like, I love how us signing players when we finish 15th with no trophies, with no European football, and players still want to come to United. I love how it's rattled a lot of the rival fans.
I don't understand why people can't get their head round the idea of players coming to Manchester United. Manchester United are the biggest club in England, right? People go, Liverpool big. How many fans have Liverpool got through the gate every week? Have they got 70,000? No. Manchester United are the biggest club in England. They just are, right? We just are.
Yeah.
And yes, we've had our worst ever Premier League season. We finished 15th. But even in our banter era, right? Even in our era of being an absolute catastrophe, we've still won 2 trophies in 3 years and been to 4 finals or whatever it is.
Yeah.
We're still winning more trophies during this absolute disastrous period than most other clubs winning their best era. Spurs and Newcastle fans are going berserk and celebrating, and rightly so, because you should celebrate winning trophies. It's Newcastle's first trophy in about 70 years, and it's Spurs' first trophy in 17. So you've got to put some perspective in this. That yes, Manchester United have struggled on the pitch, and it's been horrible, but we're still one of the big draws in world football. So this idea that someone who's playing for Brentford wouldn't want to come to Manchester United or play at Old Trafford every week is just ridiculous. This idea that someone who's been at Wolves for the last 2 seasons, wouldn't want to come and play at Manchester United, it's just nonsensical. Of course players want to come and play for Manchester United. Now, I understand it. We might not be able to do what we used to do under Fergie and go to Spurs or Arsenal and get their best strikers. I get that. But we can still get the vast majority of footballers coming to Manchester United because of who we are. And let's face facts. Yes, it has been a difficult period, but do you honestly think that Manchester United cannot turn this around, cannot get moving back up that table? Of course we can.
Yeah, I think they're at that right age as well where they can come in and be part of that rebuild and be part of, you can almost go down in history as being that part of that squad that got United back to the top and hopefully back to dominating English football again. Like I even saw, it was absolutely mad. I can't remember who posted it. I thought someone had shared it, but someone had said that why are these players going to Man United? They have no history, and you're like,
I just honestly, I saw someone just
read a book.
put someone. That's just the most stupid thing I've ever heard in my life. Someone just put it on X. I saw one of the mates who I follow. I think it was Scott the Red from Republic of Mancunia was replying to a Villa fan who said United didn't have any history before the 60s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you believe someone actually thought that, wrote it down, and published it on a social media platform? Manchester United didn't have any history before the 60s. Yeah. I'm not even going to say anything else. Yeah. You know how insane that comment is. Like, it's just so dumb. And this is the sort of argument. People get annoyed when United start looking like we're getting our act together. People don't like it. Now, it's early days. We're 4 days into the transfer window. We looked like we're about to sign 2 players, both of who bring a lot to the team, but we're not out of the woods yet. We need more. Yeah. I mean, you might look at the goalkeeper, for example, and there's still doubts there. There's a question mark there at least. You might look at that midfield and go, okay, what is going to happen if Manuel Agati isn't the one? What are we going to do? Is it Kobe Mainoo and Bruno? What's happening with Casemiro? Like, there's still big questions there. But we're moving in the right direction in terms of this transfer window so far. So I get why rival fans have started coming out with nonsense, because they're annoyed and worried.
Rattled. That's the word I always use.
Yeah. And it's daft because, if I'm a fan of any other club that considers United a rival, I won't be getting rattled by the fact that a club that's just finished 15th have bought a couple of players. I'd be like, right, they can do what they need. We need to look at ourselves. If I'm a Newcastle fan, I'd be looking at my own team. You're in your Champions League. You've won a trophy. Who are you signing? Don't worry about Manchester United. Start worrying about yourself.
Yeah. Just on the goalkeeper, I saw something online literally about an hour before we started the show saying that United look like they're going in for Emi Martinez at Villa. He could be a possible option. After what you've seen in that last game of the season, would you go for him still? Like last summer, I would have said absolutely World Cup winner. He's almost a shithouse, which what we need more of in our squad. But is he as much of a liability as Onana?
He's probably not quite, but he's not far off it.
Yeah.
He's still got one in him. And I made this point on the news on Paddock a few months ago, might have been about 4 weeks ago, when we were linked with him. And I said, for me, Emiliano Martinez is a player that, he can give you a performance that's amazing, or he can give you a performance that's like a 1 or 2 out of 10. And I have people saying he never gets a 1 or 2 out of 10. And I was looking at like some Villa forums and stuff, and there's been 1 or 2 games where they've been like, the player ratings have been like 1 out of 10. I think there was a game at Stamford Bridge where he just cost them the game. Like, he's got it in him. And I don't know, do you go from Onana to someone else who's a little bit chaotic? I know he's slightly better, but for me, I feel like you'd be better off going for a safer pair of hands, pardon the pun, just someone who's
Yeah,
maybe not got that ability to be the spectacular 9 out of 10 guy, but can give you some, 7 out of 10 almost every week. Just someone who's just a bit more reliable,
yeah.
like a younger Tom Heaton.
Mm.
Like Tom Heaton when he was young. I mean, I know there was that performance for Burnley that was unbelievable, but he was that kind of guy. He was just a good Premier League goalkeeper.
Yeah,
If you can have someone like that who's maybe not the best goalkeeper in the top 3 or 4 in the league, but isn't in the bottom 3 or 4, maybe that can do you. Like, there are goalkeepers out there, and again, this is where Ineos need to earn their money, and the scouting system, and Jason Wilcox or Christopher Vavell, or whoever, they should have a list. And if they're not going to stick with Onana, if Amorim says, look, I can't rely on Onana, I can't rely on Oli Bayande, who always seems to sort of try and play his way out of contention whenever he gets an opportunity. He just can't help himself, including that game against Villa where he was very lucky. Then who is it then? Who do we go for? If your job is to scout football, if your job is to collect data on footballers, if your job is to try and find footballers for Manchester United, you must have a list of goalkeepers that are gettable, that can do a job for Manchester United. I can't believe he sat there going, oh, we don't know. You tell me. There must be options. So,
yeah,
again, there's nothing wrong with having this discussion and not knowing all the answers. But it's up to the club to do that.
yeah. Like, I mean, it is mad when you think Onana was brought in to play a certain way, which was out from the back, and it's his almost his biggest weakness, you know. And then I know there's an argument you can make that, especially in his like last season, the majority of the season he was playing behind Maguire and Lindelof, which we all know they're not exactly the best on the ball either. So, you know, there's probably that has probably contributed to a lot of his nervousness. But you know, the one part of his game where he should be good and his shot stopping has been atrocious at times as well. You know, he's just let us down so many times, which, you know, obviously why a lot of fans are just fed up with him. But uh, just on the outgoings, then, like obviously, I know you mentioned a few there. Obviously, Rashford, Sancho. What did you make of Chelsea actually paying that 5 million penalty to not sign him?
Well, it wasn't that wasn't as sort of open and shut as some people said, because I don't think Chelsea were against the idea of signing him. I think they wanted to sign him, but
I
he
think it came
wouldn't
down
take
to
a
the
pay
offer,
cut.
wasn't it? Yeah, the
Yeah,
pay cut.
and no, if you're Chelsea or Maresca, or whoever's in charge of their wages or whatever, and you're saying, look, we're asking a player here who has had an up and down loan spell, if we're being brutally honest, to be on the same wage or maybe a little bit less than Cole Palmer or Moises Caicedo, is that
Yeah,
out of order? Is that ridiculous to say we want you to be? It might not even be less, it might be the same. You might say we want you to be on the same wages as Cole Palmer, who's one of the best players in the league. Because Jadon Sancho, I think he's on like more money than any Chelsea players, because United are paying obviously a chunk of it.
yeah.
Now, if he's not willing to drop his wage, then Chelsea, what are they meant to do? They're not going to make Jadon Sancho their highest paid player, nor should they.
Especially when he's not even starting for him.
Yeah. So it was Jadon Sancho is the reason that he's not staying at Stamford Bridge. I don't think it's Chelsea saying we don't want him. I don't
Yeah,
think it's Manchester United saying we're not willing to let him go, because obviously the clause was there. And I think Chelsea have gone, right, well, if he won't accept this pay cut, then we can't sign him. We're not going to break our wages for him. And that makes sense to me. And I just think it's a shame, because I think it would have been an easy option for Manchester United if he just went to Chelsea and we got the money for him. 25 million could go a long way to bringing in another player. But I gather from various reports and from little rumours I'm hearing, murmurs, he's got no future at all at Manchester United,
yeah,
and he's going to go elsewhere. So hopefully that'll happen sooner rather than later, because what we don't want is a protracted Jadon Sancho saga, because Jadon Sancho and saga go together like salt and
Yeah,
pepper. It just never ends, does it? It's just constant.
yeah. It took us 2 years to sign him, and now it's probably going to take us 2 years to get rid of.
Honestly, well said.
You know, yeah. Like I mean, he's along with Rashford. The wages is going to be the biggest factor in moving a lot of these players on, which I I kind of fear that you're probably going to be looking at another season long loan for a couple of our players, and then just leaving their contract run down and leave on a free. Which I hope isn't the case. You'd hope that Ineos will be able to get some kind of a deal done, but yeah, look, moving on. I'm conscious of the time now, so we'll finish up shortly. But before we finish up, looking ahead to next season, give me your prediction of where we're going to finish in the league. Now, you can base this off of players that we're in for that we potentially will sign, or you can base it off what we have at the moment, say Cunha and Mbumo. Where we're going to finish in the league, will we win a trophy?
I think we'll finish fifth in the league.
Nice, I like it.
I do. I think we'll be moving in the right direction.
Yeah,
I think if we have an injury-free season, I think we could even finish higher than that. But I'm not counting on that, because why would I? Will we win a trophy? I don't know. I'm all about trophies. I want to see us lift a trophy, and obviously we're only in 3 competitions, and 2 realistically, because even I'm struggling. I know I say 21 is coming, but let's be honest, that's going to be very, very difficult and unlikely.
yeah,
So I would love us to win an FA Cup or a League Cup. Either would be great, but I do feel like we might end up not winning a trophy, just because we're so focused on sorting our acts out in the league, focusing on that, getting the results there, and maybe just using the cup competitions for the kids. So
yeah,
I think it'll be a 5th place finish, and it might be a trophy this season for Manchester United. But look, if we finish 5th next season, that might even be Champions League football. You don't know
yeah,
how that's gonna work with the coefficient and everything, or at the very least, it's European football. And more to the point, you're winning a lot of football matches during the season if you finish 5th, and we just
yeah,
need a bit of that, don't we? We just need to see Manchester United winning at least 2 out of 3 games or whatever. You know,
yeah,
at least putting decent runs together. So if we were to finish in the top 5 next season, I think I'd be relatively happy with that. And people go, "Oh, United standards and all that." We've just finished 15th. Let's be real.
exactly.
It's
Yeah,
going to be a long road back, and I think if we can jump up 10 places in a season, that's a decent one for me.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's all about it's all about progress at this stage. It's like you said. I think, given the fact that we know European football, 1 game a week, Ruben Amorim is now going to have a full pre-season this summer with the players. Um, I know it's that should play into our hands, and I reckon we'll be pushing for top 4.
Yeah,
Um, Even regardless of if we don't sign any more players, if we can get some of the bad eggs out, you know, that full pre-season and 1 game a week, I think we should definitely be pushing for it anyway. Pushing for that top
yeah.
4, I think.
No, I think that's fair. And look, top 5, top 4 is one place. It could be 1 point
Oh, it could be goal
difference.
difference.
Yeah. So if I'm saying I think we can finish 5th, and you're saying 4th, then it's practically the same argument. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? So yeah, I don't disagree with that. I'm not going to sit here and go, "You're insane thinking we can get top 4" when I'm saying we can get top 5. It makes sense to me. It's going to be hard. We know
yeah,
that, because not only if United got to sort our own issues out and hopefully improve, but we know that other teams are improving as well. So we're not just going up against the likes of Chelsea and maybe Spurs if they get their act together, or Brighton or whoever might fancy half a chance of getting into the top 5. You're looking at a Arsenal team that are going to strengthen. Liverpool are already making signings despite having won the league. City are going big in this window, and I'm not holding my breath on them 115 charges. So
yeah,
it's going to be tough. But look, with Manchester United, we always surprise people. We always defy the odds, and despite what some people say, we're one of the biggest clubs in the world for a reason. And I, for one, believe in Ruben Amorim. I think we've got some good young players coming through. I think we've made some one decent signing, hopefully one more on the way already in this window. So I'm feeling pretty positive about the season to come. And obviously, as you mentioned earlier, keeping Bruno Fernandes is a massive plus as well.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, look, I think I won't take any more of your time. I know you're a busy man, so just like to say massive thanks again for coming on the channel, giving me some of your time, and yeah, thanks a million.
Brian, thanks for having us on, and thanks again for all your support and Stretford Paddock.
No
Me,
worries at
Steve,
all.
McCullough, and Joe, we all appreciate you a lot, man. You've been a big supporter of ours, both with the live shows we've done and on the channel. So keep it up, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate you.
thank you. I'm one of many. There's you're pushing for 800,000
Yeah,
subscribers
hopefully
now,
we get
so
there. We've gotten closer over the last week or so, and I'm
yeah,
hopeful we can do it by the end of June. I think that's a realistic target to get to 800,000. A big thank you to everyone who has supported the channel. And make sure if
yeah.
you've come from Paddocks, I did a community post for this. You subscribing to Green Devils, give Brian a support as well. Fantastic channel. Keep it going, bro.
Thanks a million, Jay. Thanks, and thanks everyone for coming and getting involved in the chat. Yeah, smash a like on the video before you go, and as Jay said, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and we'll catch you later. Cheers, Jay.
See you later, bro.